Erev Tov Chavrim, I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live. And yes, there's an article that's come out. I've been under the weather, so I've not been able to really address this as of yet, but I'm getting to this now. Jerusalem Post, UN Assembly supports resolution ignoring Jewish ties to the Temple Mount. And friends, I can't tell you, this is about as wrong can be. 193 member states, 147 voted in favor. The Jews have no ties to the Temple Mount. 7 voted against it, 8 of them abstained, and I am ashamed of the 8 abstained. And of course, the 7 that voted against it, God bless you. God bless you for making that stand for the Jewish people. Especially in light of the fact, many times, myself included, I've made stand for the Arabic people as well when I see things that are done wrong. One of the main ones, in for the last more than a year now, President Bashar al-Assad in the Middle East. It's been a total wrong war against this man. He did not gas his own people. Instead, Erdogan, who no doubt with some of the West backing, helped smuggle in those chemical weapons that Clinton wanted to make sure got into Syria there in order to gas the people to justify putting boots on the ground. So I'm willing to make a stand for the Arabic people, especially when I see that wrongs are being done. And I know, okay, I realize that there are things that are being done with the Palestinian people when it comes to land and things that are being done that are maybe not be on the up and up. I'm not here to justify either way on those issues there. But then again, Mahmoud Abbas is also talking about it should be a Jew-free West Bank. Where's the equality in that when an Arabic guy can live inside of Israel and be free as a citizen there and can even be in the parliament, and yet the West Bank is to be Jew-free? Now we're seeing the Temple Mount, that there is to be that the Jews have no ties to the Temple Mount. And that's as absurd as you can possibly get. I mean, look at it like this here. Rabbi Yehuda Glick, and I know Rabbi Glick, I've met him before, very nice man, has devoted his life to being able to just pray on the Temple Mount. And yet, how many of these states that voted in favor that the Jews have no ties to it, and you don't even want them to pray there? I mean, how many of these states maybe are actually considered Christian nations? Okay, you represent a Christian nation. Well, let me remind you something here. All right, let's take a look at something here for those of you that are supposedly the Christian nation states. Do you remember in Timothy, and I think the writing is Paul's words, but being written by Timothy, or if it's Timothy, either way. But what does he say here in verse 8, chapter 2, verse 8? 1 Timothy, I will therefore that men pray everywhere, lifting up holy hands without wrath and doubting. All right, now how in God's name can you pray everywhere with uplifted hands, without doubt and without wrath and, with any of these things here, and then say to the Jews that they have no right to pray at the Temple Mount? I mean, this is absolutely absurd. And yet you voted in favor for the Jews having no ties there. And yet King Solomon, right here, 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 54, and it was so that when Solomon had made an end of praying all this prayer and supplication to the Lord, he arose from before the altar of the Lord, right on the Temple Mount, by the way, from kneeling on his knees and with his hands spread up to heaven, like Paul just said, and he stood and blessed all the congregation of Israel with a loud voice, saying, Blessed be the Lord that given rest unto his people Israel according to all that he has promised. There hath not failed one word of all his good promise which he had promised by the hand of Moses his servant. And the Lord our God be with us, as he was with our forefathers. Let him not leave us nor forsake us. But no, we're in a modern age now, so much better than God. Is that what this UN really thinks? Or is it you're just saving this for the Pope of Rome? Well, let me tell you something. I want to show all of those that are viewing right now, especially the Arabic friends that we have out here. You don't think they're not going to build a third temple? You're right. They're cutting the ties to the Jews for the Temple Mount. But there's going to be a third temple. Let's take a look right here on Google Maps here. Google's going to kind of prophesy your future for you. You got the Western Wall, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Temple Mount. Well, they even call it the Temple Mount. Well, what do you know? Isn't that nice? At least they call it. Come down here to the bottom, and I don't know, yeah, you can see right there. Grab that little guy there and click on him. Well, what do you know here? We can come over here and we can start looking at these little panoramic pictures that you can get. Well, come to this one right here. All right. There you go. And click on that rascal right there. Now you're on Google Maps. What do you know? Are you kidding me? It isn't the Dome of the Rock sitting there, is it? No, sir, it's not. It happens to be the third temple sitting there on Google Maps. I guess you can see this on your screen right here, the word Google here. Can you see right here, image capture, December 2016? Okay. Can you see that it's a copyright right there of 2016? That's right. So you are looking at the third temple on the Temple Mount. But guess what? No, it's not going to be for the Jews. That's probably true. It's probably not going to be for the Jews. You know why? Because I'm sure what they're intending to do, and by the way, we can zoom in and you can see these things. You can even go inside and see the inside there. It kind of looks a little odd, though. It doesn't really look like the third temple to me. I mean, it's similar to the third temple, but a little bit different, isn't it? Well, anyway, thank you, Google Maps, for showing us that right there in front of the Dome of the Rock. And by the way, if you want to see inside the Dome of the Rock, we can click on another one of these little blue ones there, and sure enough, we can see inside the Dome of the Rock. But they're planning on either replacing that, according to Google Maps, or they're planning on putting that that temple right there. The Temple Mount is going to be sitting next to the Dome of the Rock. That sounds about more right. And by the way, some of you guys are going to click over there and it's not going to come up like that, right? It's going to come up with something different. There's always different ones. So if you drop up there and you want to check out some other ones there's different pictures on there for you to see too, okay? It's not just the Temple Mount that's going to be on there or the temple on the Temple Mount. So what's all that about then, friends? What's all that about then? If that's, and let me zoom back out so you know you're right over Jerusalem there. Oh, and by the way, they went ahead and they redrew your lines for you for the Palestinian friends that are listening. And you know, and like again, I'm not against Palestinian people. I feel like they've been done wrong in a lot of things. But you got to remember, when Mahmoud Abbas is going around and Yasser did the same, and you use violence and things like that, it doesn't make things get any better, friends. It just doesn't. It makes everything get worse. Now, I want to show you something. You say that the Temple Mount, we had no right to it. Let me remind you something. This is a video I did here with Dr. Roddy Brown. I want you to listen just for a minute what Roddy has to say here at the first part of this video that we did, the evidence that the Temple Mount is Jewish. That's a good video for this topic.
And if we take that premise, and the premise is from Islam that the Jews were never there, which means if the Jews weren't there, Yeshua wasn't there, Jesus. If he wasn't there, Christianity wasn't there. And now you have a new form of replacement theology. It's replacement theology repackaged. And if the Christians are deceived and accept this, then they too are being replaced, not just the Jews this time. So it becomes a really big issue. Okay, so let's go through the
I think that's good enough in itself right there. Thank you, Roddy, for making that point there. I think it's a fabulous point that Roddy made on that. So I am very much against the Resolution 193. But then again, you also have Resolution 181. And maybe it would do us just a little bit of good just to look at that. And this is very serious, friends, because this is what the ultimate goal is for the United Nations, the Resolution 181 here. They're wanting to take away Jerusalem from the Jewish people completely. All right, so the United Nations resolution plan here, right here on Wikipedia, was a plan for Palestine was proposed by the United Nations, which recommended a partition of mandatory Palestine in the end of the British Mandate on the 29th of November, 1947. The resolution recommended the creation of independent Arab and Jewish states and a special international regime for the city of Jerusalem. The partition plan of a four-part document attached to the resolution provided the termination of the mandate. All right, so they had actually intended, if you look right here on this little map right here, they had intended never giving Jerusalem to the Jewish people, period. The Jewish people, as you can see, actually the Jews got a little bit bigger state than what they're trying to propose now. If you get a better look at this, of course, Gaza would have been a lot bigger as well. But nonetheless, maybe not bigger, but just different, divided up completely differently there. But they've changed all of this here. And of course, they're giving that little tiny place there was going to be another state within a state, kind of like Vatican City. So it makes you wonder, and the Vatican, I'm sure, would love to be the ones to control that state within a state. that special regime, and they are definitely a regime. Which, by the way, let's go to one more biblical prophecy just to kind of share with you. I think would be really important right about now, and we'll kind of close this broadcast with this here. We need to take a look at Micah chapter 4. And this is to remind you of the prophecy. It says, "In that day, saith the Lord, I will assemble her that is halted, I will gather her that is driven out, and her that I have afflicted. And I will make her that is halted a remnant, and her that is cast off a strong nation. And the Lord shall reign over them in Mount Zion from henceforth even forevermore." This is speaking about Israel today, coming back to their homeland. But then he drops down to verse 9. He says, "Now why dost thou cry aloud? Is there no king in thee? Is thy counselor perished? For pains have taken thee as a woman in travail, but in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now thou shalt go forth out of the city." What city? Zion, out of Jerusalem. "And thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even unto Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered, and there the Lord shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies." So the one that holds the yoke over the neck of Israel is Rome. And until we break that yoke from around our necks, when people talk about they're against Zionism, when they're against the Rothschild Zionism and things like that, let me tell you something. The Rothschilds only did it because the Vatican made them do it. So you want to really break the yoke of that type of Zionistic nature, you got to go to Rome. You're going to have to go to Babylon. That's the ones that worked in cahoots with the Rothschilds. But let me tell you something. God still promised right here in Micah, for one of the examples here, verse 6, he promised to bring us back to our homeland. So we're there for a purpose. But as a Jewish people, let me remind my Jewish brethren, we have to do it the right way. We cannot go in there and just kill off the occupants. This is not the days of Joshua ben Nun, even though he's my ancestor, because I am Stephen ben Nun. Okay, we have to do it the way God would want us to do it, and that is with love and with mercy and remembering the commandments of Almighty God. All right, so let's do this the right way. But we have every right to the Temple Mount and to pray at the Temple Mount. And for them to say that we cannot and that we have no rights to it is a complete fabrication and a lie. And I stand with the Jewish people on the right that the Temple Mount was and is and where the first and second temple stood at one time. I'm Stephen Ben Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Shalom.